What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about Doom Eternal, because after 6 months of hype, they have finally released the first major piece of downloadable content called The Ancient Gods Part 1. Now this is like a 5-hour new story chapter that costs $20, and that might seem expensive as soon as you hear that price tag, but in my opinion, it's completely worth it. Anybody who plays a lot of Doom, you know that these games aren't just about beating them and moving on. Instead, it's about the repetition. It's about trying to beat it on every difficulty, finding every hidden collectible, and getting every single high score. And after running through this, I have to say, this, in my opinion, is definitely worth the price. But I want to talk about a few things specifically that I like, and some stuff I kinda didn't love in the Ancient Gods. Now, the most important thing to really get into is the fact that this does technically take place after the main story. So that means that right at the beginning, there is already every single demon in the game, there's every weapon, there's every single thing just completely right here, right up front. And the reason this is important is because while you are allowed to play the Ancient Gods whenever you want, don't even try it until after you've beaten the main game. And I say that because you're going to get utterly decimated. Like, it's been a couple months since I played this game, and it did take me about 30 minutes to really get warmed up again, to try and train myself again to the rhythm of Eternal. This game is really fast, it is very fun, it is incredibly brutal, but it definitely has almost a rhythmic style to it. When you're running through this, you have to constantly be aware of your ammunition, your health, and your armor, but also your cooldowns. If you haven't played Doom Eternal yet, basically the way this works is that you have a series of special abilities that can do things like if you catch somebody on fire and then kill them, you'll get health and armor back. If you manage to pick up some chainsaw fuel and cut a demon in half, it'll automatically give you more ammunition. So you need to constantly make sure you're moving around the map, making sure you don't get completely decimated by all these big old nasty beasties, but also making sure you can survive these long fights. You need to be constantly careful about picking up your power-ups, timing all your cooldowns, and making sure you're not being caught unaware. And this kind of goes one step further. Now, I don't want to say that this is extremely hard, but it is harder. This really is just ever so slightly harder than the main story was, but I think this makes sense. Because this takes place after the main story was finished, it completely fits about the fact that this is going to be a step above that. But it doesn't feel painful. In fact, once I got used to it, I think that there's some stuff in this that feels more properly balanced. Harder, yes, definitely more difficult at times, but also, I feel like the level design being better makes these fights, even if there are a bunch more enemies than you may be used to, they feel almost a little bit simplified in a positive sense. Now let's just talk a tiny bit about the story without spoiling too much, but there has been a bunch of chaotic stuff happening in the Doom universe ever since Eternal ended. Stuff went down, stuff went bad, and people are definitely kind of screwed over. Now all of reality is completely at stake, so it's our job to try and reawaken some ancient beings, which obviously by the title are the old gods, and they're going to help us try and save reality. Now this is basically just an excuse to go back to hell and try and fight a bunch more demons, of course, right? But while I was playing this, something that definitely caught me the most off guard, because I didn't really expect it, it seems like they did some sort of major graphics patch. Now the original Doom Eternal game definitely looked good, but this looks incredible. I mean, I am just completely stunned into silence at times seeing some of these like creepy decayed corpses of old demons, or just kind of running through an area, or like times where I'm having to jump into water and I'm swimming around the ocean floor, and the lighting on this shark is just incredible. It really does seem like in the 6 months since the main game came out, they haven't just been working on the downloadable content's like technical features, they have been trying to do some sort of graphical overhaul. Like, this is just running on a standard PlayStation 4 Pro, and it looks incredible. And I have to say, it also definitely runs very smooth too. It's been a very liquidy smooth experience. I had no hard crashes, I had no real frame stutters or anything. It was just one gory, smooth, bloody good time. Now let's talk about something in this that I don't particularly love. So when I played the original Doom Eternal, I ended up giving it a 9.5 out of 10. I still think it's one of the very best games of the entire entire year, but the one tiny aspect I was never personally in love with was definitely the idea of the platforming sections, and it seems like they've brought in even more of those. Occasionally, to try and break up the monotony of combat, they'll have sections where you need to use your double jump and double air dash to try and platform around, grabbing onto different swinging bars, grappling onto walls, trying to climb around, and there was just a lot of this. Now, I never particularly would use the word hate, but I just didn't really care for it in the original game, so the fact that they brought so much of this back, at least it works. I guess it's just that since I love the combat, the actual actions of ripping and tearing so much, times like this where I'm just trying to press a button and climb a tower, to me this doesn't feel exciting, it feels just a little bit out of place. But at least it's still here, it's still short, and it definitely makes it where when you're running from area to area, it stays interesting. Because let's face it, the way these Doom games work, it's basically a bunch of tiny arenas. You go to a place, you get locked in with a bunch of the monsters, and you have to fight your way out. And after defeating a bunch of waves, you get to progress. So I guess the game developers realized that since they're having some bigger and more giant fights in general, maybe they need to have these longer platforming sections in order to make it all feel properly balanced. I have to say that this is a really good downloadable content. I like the new story. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is a humongous twist at the end of this downloadable content that just makes it where I have to buy the next one. I mean, it's not even a choice. This game is super good. It has a real amount of plot. The voice acting is still good. The lore is still good. But man, is that ending a 10 out of 10 cliffhanger. So already, everything about this is exactly what I wanted. I've always said that some of the best downloadable content is when it gives you more of what you already loved. This is just Doom Eternal plus more. And so if you are just craving a couple more levels, a couple more dastardly monsters, a couple more special challenge levels, this is definitely a must buy. Now let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it because this is a paid downloadable content. I am giving The Ancient Gods Part 1 a 9.5 out of 10. Now let's just state the obvious here. If you're a mega fan of Doom, you've probably already purchased this. But if for some reason you were on the fence and you wanted to hear some opinions, here's mine. Definitely pick this up. You will not regret it. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.